It's time for another edition of Singles Only Podcast. My name is Paul Farahvar. We are doing this podcast via Zoom because I'm on the road still and there's just so much to do. And this is going to be kind of a regular thing now with our live recordings and Zoom. We're going to be interactive sometimes too. Thank you for listening. There's no voice of reason on this episode. Check out my website, paulfcomedy.com, for upcoming dates. I am traveling again. I'll be in Florida, Arizona, Chicago, and Milwaukee in the next few months, I believe, on weekends. Check it out. Subscribe. Tell your friends if you haven't already about this podcast, which may or may not be the #1 podcast in Chicago's reader. We'll find out soon. Also check out our sponsors, which you have been doing. I really appreciate it. And without further ado, let's just get into it because people say my stuff up top is too long and I'm trying to change that. Our guest is a very hilarious comedian who I've never really met in person, but we've been chatting through the Instagrams and the comedy world. I hear great things. She's hilarious when I see her stuff online. Start clapping right now for comedian Brittany Brave.
Hello.
Hey, Brittany.
Hi.
I like how I say start clapping. Like I feel like I'm back in mode of like hosting a show for some reason. But
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're hosting the pod, so it's the same. It's
yeah,
the same. As a comic, that's what we live off of. Our currency is laughter. So it's just,
yes,
yeah.
that is our currency. So Brittany, we haven't even met in person though. We have mutual friends. We follow each other on Instagram. I know that you were in Chicago when I wasn't there for some reason, and now
hmm
we're in the same state of Florida. And
hmm
again, we missed each other because you were doing shows in my neck of the woods where I was when I was back on the road. So,
We're just two busy booked ships passing each other in the
oh,
night. I'm not taking it personally, Paul. Trust me.
yeah, I'm definitely not trying to avoid you. If anything, it's you that's been difficult to.
I'm a woman. I have to play hard to get. Come on.
Yeah, and also you're busy too, which is awesome. I love that when we were trying to schedule this, you are booked up solid with shows, as I am, which is it's starting to have some normalcy of the old days when we have shows every night. So I like that.
Yeah, it's nice to be back in a rhythm. I was telling a friend last night, I was like, as a comic, there's a lot of minutes and hours in a day, but it's only 20 of them sometimes matter to us. Like we wait all day for that 8 minutes at night or something. So it's nice to have a purpose again. Yeah.
Absolutely. Speaking of purposes,
Mhm.
you are on the Singles Only podcast, which means that you're single. Um, why do you think that is? Let's get into it. Why do you think you're single? Because you're funny, you're attractive. What's
Thank
keeping you single?
Keep it going, Paul. Just keep it going. Layer it on. Layer it on. No, I'm kidding. That's a good question. I think my generation, I can curse on this, right? I just want to make sure. I had a feeling, but I'm a polite lady. I wanted to make sure. I think I'm a millennial, and I think that my generation is utterly fucked,
Okay.
if you will. Yeah. I think that we have intimacy absolutely defined the wrong way. I've let men inside my body before they've been inside my apartment, if do the math. So it's just hard. It's hard to get on the same page with people. Our generation thinks they want commitment. They don't. They want sex, but they don't want intimacy, or they want intimacy, but on their own terms.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm unfortunately straight, so that's always going to come with an uphill battle. Yeah. So.
Well, do you think that do you have like you say your generation? Are you including yourself in that, or do you feel like you belong in a different direction or a different?
100% belong in a different generation.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, like my parents have been married for over 40 years, together for over 40 years. And that, for better, for worse, whatever, that's always been like my love model and the thing that I'm going after. And, I feel like the majority of my generation is just looking for they're going from dopamine high to dopamine high.
Sure.
Just and whoever's gonna give it. Yeah.
Quick results, quick action. What do you want to get married and have like that relationship that your parents had for 40 years?
I do. I could lie to myself all day long and say that I don't. I mean, I think at its core, I want to have that like good foundation and good connection with somebody, and whether that's labeled as marriage or maybe we don't even need that label or formality, that's fine. But I would, yeah. I mean, I grew up with a mom who was a great wife to a great husband, and they share assets well. They built a life together well, at least in a traditional sense. They co-parent well. So yeah, down the line, maybe not now. I just turned 30, but
Right.
I think that is something that I would like to check off the list for sure.
Um, do you want to have kids also?
100%. Yeah,
Okay.
I want to pop a whole assembly line of little Italian maniacs out. Yeah.
Oh, are you? I was going to ask if you were Italian because you kind of sound like you are, but that would seem racist if I said that. So
No, first off, there's
I was like, yeah.
no concept of racism with Italians. You could call me a guinea and a wop, and I'm gonna love it. I'm gonna be like, yeah, there I am.
So you're
Yeah,
an Italian woman uh, from a family. Are you 100% Italian?
yeah, for the most part. My parents were born here, and then my grandparents onward are also.
You're,
Yep.
yeah, you're so you want to get married, you want to have kids, and
Mhm.
you chose a career where that may make it a little difficult.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't leave a lot of time to do the groundwork that leads you to marriage or to put the kind of effort and focus in that leads to those things. But
You're still young. I mean, you have a lot of years before, plenty of years before you can even start a relationship or have kids. It's not like you have a biological clock ticking anytime very soon. So you have time.
that's good. That's good. Yeah, time is on my side. That's true. And if my track record's proven anything, I don't have any trouble getting pregnant, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard. When people ask how many kids I have, I say -2. But so I'm not too worried about that. I think my Italian genes have made some monster ovaries, so I think I'm gonna be okay. But it's frustrating because yeah, like how you said, it is on the list, but it is a career that doesn't really favor normal hours and
No.
time to date and get to know somebody.
Have
Yeah.
you had a long relationship? Have you had something longer than, a year?
Yeah, I did. My last relationship, so I've been single for 3.5 years,
Okay.
and then my last relationship was 3 years, and then right before that one, I was in one for like the better part of a year, or a little over a year,
Oh, okay.
officially a year. I feel like I did the majority of my monogamous commitment in my early to mid 20s when I wasn't doing comedy full time. I was in a job I hated,
Okay.
and
So those are the
yeah,
years where you shouldn't be monogamic. You should be
I
making
know.
decisions.
I know, which I did. I did, trust me. I did plenty of that. I did plenty of that and people whose names I've blocked out of my brain and whatnot. But I think I dedicated more time to dating back then because I was in a job that was soul sucking that I hated, corporate, and dating was like the fun in my life, the only outlet in my life. And then I pivoted into comedy and now I'm like, oh shit, never gonna love a man as much as I love a punchline. Here we are.
Are
So
you, how are you? Well, let me ask you this about your last relationship. You said it was 3.5 years. Why did
yes.
it end or how did that end?
So super abusive guy. So it was one of those situations. Yeah, I mean, I'm an open book when it comes to it. I have a podcast about it, everything. But it was physical and emotional abuse. So no matter what was good in that situation, there was just no way to marry a hurricane, if you will, and just marry something like that. And then before that, it was just I dated a guy who was married and said he was going through a divorce, but actually the papers weren't filed and they were like barely separated, and it got kind of fishy and a
Sure.
lot of I like I if he's gonna ruin my life, he's my type, Paul. Let me put it that way.
I want to know if like the abusive relationship you were in, was that the only time you were in an abusive relationship or is it something that's happened in the past?
It's in all honesty, those two relationships, the ones that were back to back, were both abusive. The first one, luckily, was not physically abusive, but there was a lot of mental gaslighting, bullshit, manipulation, especially when he was caught cheating and his whole life kind of came to the surface. There was a lot of like destroying me in the process,
Yeah.
making me like the bad guy. And I did that quintessential, I feel like 20s thing where you go through a really bad breakup and what do? You don't work on yourself. You don't take a time out. You just like rebound right into something else. Yeah. So I think that's why I had a toxic little rough go for a couple years. Yeah.
In the last few years that you've been single, how are you meeting guys?
In person or through comedy, unfortunately. And
Any-
through comedy is not ideal. It's
Yeah.
not I don't recommend the shitting where you eat. I've been burned by that before. So
we at the podcast have a strong opinion on that. That you should never date a comedian as a comedian. Just like in any other career, you don't date people that you work in, and there's a reason for that, especially in comedy. Even in
Yeah.
music, it's a bad decision. So
I agree. I agree. And, I think everyone falls victim to it. And, for a while, so I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on this. Like, because for a while, prior to me ever even dabbling with comedians, I really was always dating outside of that and dating outside of work. I had always thought to myself, well, if I do start to date a comedian, isn't the issue not that we work together? The issue would come down to like respect and professionalism. So like really in an ideal setting, if I'm in a healthy, respectful partnership, that's good and I know he takes his work seriously, I take my work seriously, we'd always keep it above board. I'm like, in theory, we should be able to make it work. And that if it doesn't work, it's not really that we're both comics, it's that he's not we don't have a respect for each other or something else is wrong.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
more, there's so many levels of why it's bad. Obviously, working in the same environment is bad. The competitiveness, someone gets something, someone doesn't. Respect obviously is part of it too, but you also assume that comedians can have healthy relationships. Most of us cannot. It's just not. People that choose a career that's got
Yeah.
less than 1% chance of success, whatever
Yeah.
that means, are inherently fucked up in one way or the other. And then you add another level to it of maturity, emotional maturity. I mean, there's so many different reasons why not to date comedians. It's very easy to fall into that pattern because you're in work environment.
Right.
It's really hard to find other people that can understand what we do or make us laugh as much as other comedians. So that makes it even harder, I think,
Hmm.
especially for women, I think, because men tend to be, their egos tend to be hurt when a woman is funnier than them in a relationship.
And to your point, I'll completely agree that that has happened the most for me when I have dabbled with other comedians. So yeah, it's exactly what you said, and it's one of those things where it's like lessons learned.
Yeah.
Um, and I think when I started to really throw myself into stand up and get up every night, and it was all that I was living and breathing and eating and doing. That's when it happened. But yeah, I guess that's what I will say. I don't use the apps either. So it's either been through comedy, which I don't prioritize anymore, and it's a no go, or it's always been a friend of a friend or a random, who knows, meet him at an event, meet him somewhere. Yeah,
The two things. One, obviously, the one advice that I give to every comedian that I meet, especially funny women, the first thing I say is don't fuck other comedians. And I say it like I just talked to someone about it here in Florida, where I was talking to her. I was like, don't do it. You're funny, and it's gonna fuck because in those situations, typically the woman gets fucked over. Um,
100%, 100%.
but as
Yeah,
far as like, so
they
you,
think you're fucking to get booked. That's what they think you're doing.
yeah,
Yeah,
just a fucked up situation. Thankfully, now we've elected a vice president who's a woman, so we've solved all issues of the patriarchy. It's all,
that's it.
sexism is over, so that's good. But
Yeah, no pressure on Mrs. Harris or anything, but that's it. She's cured feminism. So
take a while to trickle in. But I can't. I'm not going to go into my bit. But what I was going to say is, so you've done this already. You have hooked up with comedians. It
yeah.
sounds like more than once.
I have, yes. And I would say 9 times out of 10, there haven't been 10. First off, let me clarify that. There have not been 10. So yeah, it's been more like 3 times out of four, 2 times out of four, maybe. It's been fine and it's been okay. And it's been able, I actually dated a comedian in New York and we both kept it really low profile. I know we're the exception to the rule with that, but we just when nobody really knew, our close friends who weren't in comedy knew, and we always kept it professional and above board. But I understand that that's the outlier, that's the exception to the rule. But yeah, it happened as a not making enough time to date or to put myself out there in other ways, and then all I was doing was comedy, and we're already lonely motherfuckers as it is. So I think that's how those things happen. But yeah, you do reach a point where you're like, all right, I think I'm on to something here and I'm doing pretty well in comedy. And I really don't want to jeopardize that by like fucking a jabroni. Yeah.
There's,
Yeah.
there's obviously a creative connection that you have. But I mean, I think there's comedy adjacent people that you can date or other careers in the creative side. But if you want to be have a traditional Italian wedding, marriage and stuff, you also have to consider money because
Yeah. And dating someone who's not in this field.
yeah,
Yeah.
you don't want to go back to that corporate job that sucked your life. The other guy has to be the money maker. So that's something to consider too. If you want to have this alleged, Italian mafia wedding that I picture, um,
Hmm.
so you
Which
got
is
to.
what I want to do. I definitely do. And yeah, and to your point, it's I have noticed with I have dated a handful of guys in New York specifically that weren't in comedy, that were in finance and accounting and other very white careers. And I will say that it can be challenging to find a guy who's comfortable with you living that lifestyle and getting on stage every night and candidly talking. But I have been lucky enough that the guys I dated that weren't in comedy honestly thought it was like fucking awesome that I was a comedian and were really fascinated by like this completely different job and world that I was in. So,
Yeah, I mean, everyone, the dating a comedian, the stages are: number one, wow, this is so cool. Two, tell me more. Three, wow, you are really fucked up. Four,
right,
how far can I run away from this person? So like
right.
you got to the point where they're like one and two, but they didn't realize how fucked up it is that we what we do and are being not only emotionally unavailable but physically, right? Because they probably had 9 to 5 jobs or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, and it's who's to say? Yeah, I think you're right. Like who's to say if the commitment got deeper, it would probably have gotten even more complicated with like why are you talking about that on stage? Or
Yeah.
I even think of my past relationships, the two guys I was last really committed to and consistent with. No way in hell could I have been doing what I'm doing now with the two of them. They were jealous, they were abusive, they were full of their own bullshit, yeah, so
But you get approached after shows, I'm sure, by people in the audience too. Has that ever worked out in terms of a date or a relationship?
mm, I
Or
can't say it I can't say it has.
okay,
No, because I would also argue that, you know, given the circumstances, there's exceptions to everything, but I would also argue that that's just as tricky as dating a comedian, right? Because we're all trying to build a fan base.
yeah,
And part of why he's attracted to you is because you are funny and you did just do well, plus a series of other factors. And to me, I think that that's where I'd rather keep somebody like that
yeah.
is a little bit at arm's length and as a ticket buyer and as a yeah. So
You shouldn't fuck your fans. That's a good
yeah.
rule. Yeah.
Yeah, right, right. That too. I think that's what, well, that's what it's like when I date some of the male comics I've dated. It's me fucking my fans. I'm
Oh,
kidding.
there you go.
Yeah.
Why are you against the apps? You said that you don't like the apps either. I mean, you're in a city, you're in South Florida where all these people are moving to Chicago or to Florida, or at least there for a long period of time, where you can meet successful people who can't afford to, live in Miami in a pandemic, probably drive nice cars, probably can wine you and dine you like you deserve, like
Buy
a
me incredible cocaine,
yeah,
just the best of the best.
that's allegedly there. So
Yeah.
what about that? Why can't you go on those apps and do that?
It's not my thing. It's just not.
Tell me why it's not your thing.
I have been on and off the apps since probably 2014, 2015. I've tried all of them just about in some capacity. Um, I have a hard time reading chemistry through an app. I know everybody does. I know it's not natural, but I will pitch the argument that at least for men who are inherently more sexual and physical creatures, while the banter is important and you want to feel like she's cool and there's something in common, you guys can kind of compartmentalize that and be like, well, at the very least, I'd carve out time to meet this person to potentially hopefully fuck, right? Like I think there's some, at least from my guy friends, I've noticed that too. For me, I don't really have an interest in meeting him unless or fucking him unless there's like a mental capacity.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for me. I've only one time ever gone on a date from an app and I ended up dating him for 6 months. And we were seeing each other for 6 months. I just am like, oh, he's okay, but like I could meet him for a drink or I could go to an open mic. Like nothing, nobody was ever so engaging on there that I was like, him. Yeah.
You're interested in the mental, obviously the physical is what you're seeing there, but some of the apps have their bios in there, like, and they have a lot of information where you can figure out enough about the person based on the questions they answer and what they don't answer, you know?
Mhm.
So like, and the problem I see if you are wanting to get married, guys are not going to approach you at bars like they used to, because I've talked about it in the podcast before where it's just not, that's how I met every girlfriend I had, but it's before I was 30. But now, you know, if I talk to a woman at a bar, it's usually like I've offended them. And I'm
That's
not
fair.
an aggressive person, but I mean, my longest relationship was me going up to a bar at a late night bar at 3 in the morning in Chicago and acting like I was doing a survey on the fucking bar. And like clearly
That's
just,
creative.
but it was funny. And that was like one of my most successful relationships.
Yeah, I agree with you with that too. And I mean, women are part of that problem as well. We spend hours and hours getting gussied up and making sure every detail on our face and body look good. And, then it's a catch 22 for guys because why are we getting dressed that way and going out to a bar if we don't want to be approached? But then the second you come up to us and try to talk to us, we're like, ew, get the fuck away from me. So
Right.
it's like, how do you, yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I totally get that. I could give the apps another shot.
Yeah.
I think I just have a really bad attention span too for
Right.
those things.
Well,
Yeah.
here's things about the apps. Number one, there's the only times that I would be on those apps were basically in the bathroom or right before you go on stage. It like calms me for some reason to like,
Yeah. Mind numbing.
yeah, like also like, yeah, it gets me in a different place where I can feel, maybe it's like ego boost to see people that like, it's like casino where you like get to say, oh, nice, I got that one.
Yeah.
Uh, but I do think that the time to date them and stuff, I definitely would do all the dates I've ever done were either before shows or after shows or like
Mm.
a lunch date, like whatever. And you can still meet people and figure it out, but obviously talk to them before for a while. And I think that's the only way you can go. Um, especially,
Yeah, I understand that I'm on the outskirts here because I don't really use them
yeah,
and I also have I mean you get it because you're from
you
Chicago.
either. I mean, you just said you turned 30, so you got like 10 years to figure this shit out. So
Yeah. 40 is the new 30 and 30 is the new 20, I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think you have,
Um
literally you do. You have a lot of time, but it doesn't seem like it's not a priority for you. Do you need to have a relationship now as live your day to day, or do you like just kind of being by yourself?
I have a really unrealistic expectation, which is that I would like to be in a relationship. I would like to be in like a healthy, fulfilling relationship. But and here's a big but and a big caveat. It's like how you just said. It's not a priority to me to put the work in to find it.
Right.
So it's like anything else. Like you can't go to a grocery store and be looking for a specific item and then you're like, "Well, I just hope it falls into my fucking lap. I don't really want to walk around or ask for help?" Like and I recognize I just recently come to Jesus moment that I was like, if I could fast forward into a healthy partnership with a guy I'm super into and we're locked in, that would be great. But the thought of doing the necessary things to get there, like how you said, swiping, going on the dates,
Yeah.
being available. Like
But
I'm not in a place I don't want to sacrifice my stage time or my personal time or my friend time to go on a date with somebody I'm likely not going to get serious with.
right.
Stubborn.
I
Yeah.
I mean, I don't sacrifice any stage time for any relationship, but I'm
Ever.
also in a different place where I like being by myself more than I don't want to be in a relationship like that. Although I'm the opposite, where if I do fall into a relationship, I'm like, all right, cool, this is cool. That wasn't what I was looking for, but I like having this companionship, whatever. But for you, if it's something that you do want to see, and to me, like maybe this is stupid, but like I feel like because I've had so many dates and stuff with my life that I have a better idea of what's good and what's bad. So much so that I'm now a dating expert on a podcast that you know now I'm not
That's why I'm here today.
right.
I'm here for answers. I'm not here for promotion. I'm not here to meet you, Paul.
No,
I'm here for secrets, okay?
no,
Tell me.
I'm here to give people advice on so they don't end up like me. Like I like being single. I want people to tell me that I've got it wrong. I should be in a relationship. And my parents are, they've been married for 50 years and they're
Mhm.
together. So I mean, there is positives to it, but I'm like, man, it's pretty awesome to like be able to after a show last night, like go straight to do whatever the fuck I want, like go to Waffle
Yeah.
House and get a pecan pie and then go work out.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I add, I want to offer a comment on that. And this is it's a so it's about going to do whatever you want, right? And that's something that you
Yeah.
just said. And I hear you. 1,000% hear you. And I think that sometimes the reason why committed relationships get a bad rep or a negative stigma is because there's such a fine line between being together and being like attached in that way that, and I do blame women. I'm an honest feminist here. Like I blame a lot of us for this. Um, it's so quickly commitment and monogamy means I can't be myself. I suddenly can't dictate my own schedule. Right? There's a fine line. There's a fine line there. And I can understand why for some people that makes them want to be single, or for men as a straight woman I can understand how straight men are like I don't want to be tied down. That's why they refer to it as tied down, because so quickly it goes from I'm into this person and want to make time for this person to I just wanted to go to the bar after my show and now she's mad, or right, or vice versa. He's upset I won't go out with his friends but I just want to stay home. And yeah, yeah.
You have to make a sacrifice for other people, and it's being self-centered and selfish. You don't want to, when you're in a relationship, you do things you don't want to do because you want to make your partner happy, and
Mhm.
and that's good. I get it. But like those same people that were bitching at me about, why, you had a good run, give up, get married or whatever, during the pandemic when they were alone with their families for 2 months dying, they were calling me being like, oh my god, you've got this all figured out. And I don't know the answer, but I feel like there is positives. If I can live with the negative of probably dying alone and having to have someone care for me, I'm much happier now than like that. But who knows? And maybe that shit's gonna change. If I lose my hair, I'll get married too. I'll fucking say fuck this shit.
Right. If my gynecologist says you're actually in early menopause somehow at 30, I'll be like, well, we got to do something. We got to act quick. That's it.
You can. I know a lot of my friends in their late 30s froze their eggs, and they're still frozen. They're not being used yet. So
I will. And I'm either going to make a baby with them or sell them to like a museum or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
what is it that? Let me ask you this. Let's get into what is it that you know about what you're looking for. And for me, it's a process of elimination. Like I know what I don't want. When people ask me why are you in the apps, or why am I talking to this person, it's like, well, I know the things I don't want, and I always
Right.
think that's the best way to get what you want, because everyone's like, yeah, if you say I want to get married and have kids and have a 40-year anniversary with this dude, that's easier said than done. But what is it that you've learned from dating that you're like, all right, I never will do that again, or I can't date, you know, guys who have shitty music taste?
Yeah, totally. Also, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think I've said the exact same thing you've said, where I think it's process of elimination a
Well,
little
I
bit.
said
And that is that
it first, so
you did. You said it first.
fucking steal my fucking thunder.
I'm not, I swear to God that I swear you're gonna burn this episode the second we're done with it. I know.
No,
Um, I won't obviously ever do abuse. That's obviously an obvious one, and it's it takes time to realize those things.
yeah,
But
how do you know when that? What are the tells for people to know that they might be getting into an abusive relationship?
I think a lot of it becomes relying on your intuition a little. What I've noticed from abusers, and that goes from my own experiences and that of my friends too, is that there's like a huge lack of accountability for themselves in all areas of their lives. There's a this happened to me, this person is the reason. I can't, you just see people who don't have ownership over anything that's going on in their lives, and then you're like, that's a lot of deflecting, and that's probably going to manifest itself in another way. And
And not taking, yeah, blaming others maybe, and playing the victim card, are those things that happen?
all the time, a lack of self-awareness, a lack of full self-ownership, and all of that. And it's a big one. It's a big turnoff for me when guys say their ex is crazy or say women are crazy. Crazy is a hurtful term. I think guys would be hurt if they get called crazy. Women get hurt when they get called crazy. And in my experience, every time a guy has said she's crazy, she's fucking crazy, she's crazy, she's crazy, from the two abusive guys that I've dealt with, I ended up unearthing track records from them that were these women crazy, or were you beating the shit out of them? Or were
Yeah.
you, not showing up for your daughter and that's why you're now in a custody battle? Or are these women crazy, or are you an asshole? Because I feel like it takes a lot of maturity. And regardless of how a situation really ends with a partner, outside of massive infidelity or abuse, you should still respect that person on some level, because at some point in your life they were right enough for you to be a partner. So it's super attractive to me now when a guy can say, hey, I really loved her. We were together for 4 years, whatever. It didn't work out. I'll always, it is what it is. Maybe certain elements of it suck. Maybe he bitches about parts of it. But the second it's, she's fucking crazy, she's crazy, I am always inclined to be like, why are we putting all this on her? Why are we, you know what? That's just not realistic. I think it's more realistic to be like, I fucked up, she fucked up. At the end of the day, it didn't work. It worked when it worked. It doesn't now. Onward we go. Like, that's a way healthier, So,
It's healthy to be self-aware. I mean, that could also be a red flag too, right?
right.
Because I'm the opposite, where I say I'm a disaster, and people are like, "Well, why did your relationships fail?" Because I'm like, "Yeah, because I'm hard to date. I'm fucking selfish and all this stuff." And then people are like, "Well, maybe I can change it." It's like, no, I'm a disaster too. So like, on the flip side, I might not be abusive or anything, but there are people like me who are just horrible, bad news. So
No, so am I. I'm my own, I'm a disaster in my own right too. It's why we do what we do, It's why we do what we do. And as women, I can speak to that as well. We do have this like weird maternal inclination to fix, Even when I've had guys literally say to me, "Don't get involved with me. This is a bad idea." And I'm like, "No. You haven't
yeah, when
had this." Yeah.
they listen, that's another thing. Like, where people are, I think that happens a lot, where women that I've dated have been in abusive relationships, and then they go swing to the opposite side of someone who's not abusive, but is also, toxic, or not toxic, but just toxic with that person. So
Yeah, that's true too. And there's a lot of that too. It's talked about a lot in domestic violence recovery as well, that when you start to date again, you start to inherently subconsciously romanticize people who aren't necessarily outright abusive. They're just technically better than what you've had. So you think that it's like so much better, and you think that it's so much, yeah.
they've said that your last relationship set the bar so low, where you're like, okay, this guy doesn't use me physically and emotionally, so he's awesome. But in reality, they can also suck too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are the other things that are like deal breakers for you, other than people who call their exes crazy, or your intuition telling you that you should back the fuck off?
It ranges from like
Minimal,
bad.
mini stuff to big stuff. What are the deal breakers?
I hate like bad tattoos. I don't like guys who ride motorcycles. I won't deal with tiny penises no more. I don't, that's it. This is self-love. Um, Down to like, or on the bigger side of things, it's like I gotta date somebody who's passionate about something, you
Yeah,
know?
that's
You got, yeah,
that's important. I think you're right, 100%. Especially for people like us who are comedians who are pursuing our passions, like they have to have something they're really into, and that's a common thread with a lot of people I've had on the podcast. But it is crazy how that can make or break a relationship.
totally. Yeah, totally. Because I think it also helps you keep the relationship in perspective, right? Because we're never as comedians. Well, I don't want to speak for you, but I can definitely speak for myself. I'm never going to love a man as much as I love comedy.
Yeah.
Eh,
No,
Yeah.
comedy is like our girlfriend in a lot of ways, our boyfriend. It really is, and people, it's taken me almost 10 years to like figure that out. Like, this is what I've done, and like, for better or for worse, like it's made me what I am. But
Yeah.
you said bad tattoos. Give us, what's a bad tattoo? I've got so many bad tattoos, so I want to know, what are the worst ones that you've had dealt with, that you're like, and how do you like, do you really make that a deal breaker? Like, what are tell me some of the ones that you were like, no. I mean, obviously a tribal tattoo is probably considered a bad tattoo right now.
Yes.
Unless they're,
Yes.
unless they're Indian, then it's like, okay.
Sure, then they can do whatever they want. Right, right. So, I had a guy have a dolphin tattooed on his foot, and it was just like, why, you know? And he's like, "Cause I like it," and I was like, "I can't. I'm not even gonna go near your feet, and I don't want to. I don't
Yeah.
want to be near them." I also hate like bad facial hair, like when guys try to do weird things with
Yeah.
the step, like
Like
just,
mustaches that go all.
ugh,
Yeah.
no, God, no.
I love that shit.
Yeah, I don't want to, none of that. And it's like also it's so vain, but it's like I work out every day, like sometimes twice a day too. It's like fitness is a huge part of my like mental health and my life, honestly. So like I want to date a guy who works out and like takes care of himself. So I think guys that don't, that'll turn me off a little bit too, and like, but like it's, everyone's got their thing. Everyone's got their
What are your type? What is the type that you've done? Because you're getting in a bunch of DMs. So let's get this out of the way. What are like your typical type? Who's your your crush in the celebrity
mm,
world or whatnot? Like what's your type so we can get that out there.
Chris Cuomo on CNN. Don't he can get it though. Like he's a sexy guy.
50 something.
Yeah, I like him older usually.
Well, now
Yeah.
fucking all my friends are gonna be hitting you up, so you're fucked.
Hell yes, please. If they can figure out how to DM in this generation, tell them to slide on in.
They don't have Instagram yet. They're all on fucking MySpace and Facebook still.
And
So
Alta Vista.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Who's my like ultimate celebrity? I'm probably gonna end up marrying an Italian. I like dark hair, dark eyes, big penis.
Yeah.
I could deal with one bad cheesy Italian tattoo. Italian guys always have something like Forza strength like on their arm or a cross on their back, and I'm like, that's just the right amount of Guido for me. Like I'm into that.
So you like Italians, I take it. That's your type.
Italian or Jewish guys. I've dated the most of. Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know. Well,
Yeah.
there's a lot of those in Miami, so you should be fine.
I know. I know. I got to hang out more in North Miami Beach. That's where I'll really fucking be cleaning up.
Coconut Grove, baby. Well, we are well over time here, Brittany. We'll have to get you back. I do think you need to go on the apps. I do strongly. People say like I fucking I'm not sponsored by Hinge, but like I'm really on this Hinge kick right now. Even though I got kicked off of Hinge for something for 24 hours and they apologized. But
Dick pics? It's okay, Paul. Just admit it.
no, it was I think I offended so I'm in Florida and I think what happened was I offended someone. If someone has like because on Hinge you can say your political stuff and I'm not very, liberal or whatnot, but they wrote conservative and I think all I wrote was still like this is when the day of the Capitol happening. And I think they reported me. And I have a relationship with Hinge because I was supposed to meet their founder when I was doing South by Southwest last year for this podcast. So I go, why'd you guys kick me out? They're like, you violated our things. I was like, what did I violate? And then like,
Fucking say.
no, I know. They wrote back, oh my god, we're so sorry. We did some investigation and you didn't do anything. So
That's so funny. Do you know I've noticed that apps are a little bit more. I had an ad kicked back for a show I'm producing on Miami Beach, and they said I had hate speech in it, and literally the tag. Yeah.
they got trigger words. Like this one gets a lot because singles only. They think it's like some sort of dating it, like a sex worker thing. But I'm always like,
OnlyFans or something. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but they're usually cool when you talk to them. But anyway, go on the apps. Tell us what happens. We'll have you back on, hopefully in person when you're in Chicago or I'm here in Florida. We'll have you back on to see your results. But at least go on Hinge or Raya or one of those apps and
Hinge is one of the only ones I had success with. The guy that I dated for 6, 7 months, I met on Hinge. So Hinge is so far in the lead for me.
do
Yeah.
all the information. And if you do it right, like if they don't have six pictures or they don't fill in the blanks, that means they're hiding something that they might be married, whatever. But I tell everyone fill everything out. Like, and women are like, well, my safety. It's like no guys like if they're gonna steal your information, they're not gonna do it on Hinge. They're gonna do it on your email account, which you fucking subscribe to stupid things when you go to the restaurants and stuff.
Yeah,
So
and if safety is really an issue in the world we live in, don't leave the house, I guess. Like, right? Yeah. Yeah.
don't go meet these guys and without like doing your background check, but you can talk to them online. They're not going to steal your information based on what you wrote in your profile unless you put your address and like,
Yeah.
zip.
If anything, I'm trying to steal their information. If they're over 50, I'm trying to get into their 401k, but that's a conversation for another time. So,
Another way, and that's a good way to do it. Actually, you can find your like Jewish Chris Como on there with his fucking dolphin tattoo.
I'm manifesting him right now. I can't wait.
Where, where can people find out more about you and your upcoming shows and your podcast too? Please tell us all.
Yeah, at Brittany Brave on Instagram, brittanybrave.com for shows and projects. I do have actually a web series about dating, the disastrous dating life of Diane Damone. I think it's very funny. And we're rolling out more episodes in the coming weeks. And then I do have a podcast called Bad Women through my women's organization Cat Call. And it's just conversations with cool women about female issues, domestic violence. It's funny though. It's engaging. It's great. So yeah.
Well, thanks, Brittany, for doing the Singles Only podcast. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for listening or watching another episode of Singles Only. Please continue to do so, subscribe, and give us a like and all that good stuff.
By now, you know that I'm a lawyer, right? Everyone does. And I don't really practice anymore, although I still have a license. But when I need a lawyer, and I do often need a lawyer, I contact my friend Scott Shapiro. If you're injured on the job or need compensation, you're entitled to payment for more than you know. A lot of times companies will try to settle with you so you don't get a lawyer because they don't want you to know all the monies you're entitled to. Scott Shapiro has been helping injured workers for over 20 years. In addition, his firm handles multiple other cases, including personal injury cases and entertainment law issues. He has handled a lot of my entertainment stuff as well as those of guests on the show and listeners. So you need a lawyer, sure, you can consult me. But if you want a free consultation from the best, don't take any chances. Contact my friend, Scott Shapiro. His number, 312-648-8800, or check out his website, scottshapirolegal.com. There are other Scott Shapiros. Make sure you call the right one, 312-648-8800 or scottshapirolegal.com. Tell him I sent you, and he will be very happy.